Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Illuminati, the man who rules the world, takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Some people wonder why I am so serious in these videos and in real life. And the reason why I'm very serious in these videos and real life is because I understand how dangerous emotions can be for a man. Now, when it comes to men, we oftentimes do have emotions, but we don't go out here actively expressing our emotions because expressing those emotions can be very dangerous for a man and can cost him his personal reputation, cost him his professional reputation, and cost him even his freedom. And optically, it's not a good look for a man to be emotional, because if a man is out here expressing too much emotion, what he's doing is sending a message to the world that he's not a man that other men need to respect or regard, and a man that they definitely cannot trust. Because when it comes to a man who doesn't have control over his emotions, what that man is sending a message to everyone is that he's someone who has really no discipline and no self-control, because if he cannot control himself, then other people cannot trust him to be able to take control of different things as related to business operations. And when it comes to women, when they see an emotional man, they cannot trust that man to be a leader, because if that man cannot really have control over himself to take the lead in his own life, then he cannot really be someone they can trust to take the lead in the relationship, or even take the lead if she hoped to look to build a family with that man. And a man who has control over his emotions this is an indicator of, one, his character, because a man who has control over his emotions, this shows that this man has strong discipline and resolve, and has strong enough discipline and resolve to stand in the face of adversity and overcome challenges. That's what a man who has control over his emotions, that's the message he sends to people. And when a man has control over his emotions, what that does is it sends another message that this is a man that other men can trust, because if that man can have control over himself in situations, he can take control as related to maintaining different codes of manhood, and is someone who they can trust to maintain the unwritten and written social codes of manhood. So men know when they see that man is of good character and is somebody they can rely and depend on, and is someone they can rely and depend on in situations where they need to have it, where there's conflict, and they know that this man is not going to break in a conflict, and he'll be able to go out here and be able to conflict resolve and problem solve. So a man who is in control over his emotions, he's somebody that people want to be around. And again, a man who is too emotional is not one that men or women want around them. No, true to the game, men and women do not want to be around an emotional man, because an emotional man who has no control over himself is someone who basically will just take a whole situation in life completely out of control and put people's lives in jeopardy. Now, a lot of men think that being emotional is good, because over the last 60 years we have raised boys in households under the culture of feminism, and because the wealthy and feminists wanted to see a kinder, gentler, softer man, they wanted a man who was more in touch with his feelings. And they thought that this man would be more in touch with his feelings, would be somebody who they could be able to manipulate and control. Unfortunately, when it comes to men who are emotional, what happens is you can't really manipulate or control them, because these men do not know how to work through their feelings and navigate through their feelings. No, they just act impulsively on their feelings, and because they act impulsively on their feelings, there's no way to predict how they're going to behave. That's what the feminists and the wealthy didn't understand about an emotional man. An emotional man is a very dangerous and unstable creature because he's got the physical strength of a man and the emotions of a woman. And when he gets excited or just aggravated or upset, he acts on those feelings, never thinking about the optics of how he looks, one. Two, doesn't think about the consequences of his actions or the ramifications of his actions. No, he just acts on his feelings, and as he acts on those feelings, it puts everybody in jeopardy, and that's why you don't really want to be around emotional men. Emotional men are extremely dangerous, and they're extremely dangerous because, again, they are extremely volatile and extremely unpredictable. And again, a lot of feminists thought they could manipulate and control these men by thinking they could push a button here or there. But what happens in the case of many emotional men is that these men wind up exploding in rage, or they just wind up acting very erratic. And in a situation where you're expecting a man to be a leader, you don't really want a man who's out here too emotional, because what he's going to do is act very erratically, and you won't know where you stand with that man, so you can't really set a direction or a course with that man. And in many cases, when you're dealing with an emotional man, he will do things based on his impulses, never really thinking critically about the long term as related to how his actions will impact others. So it's not a really good thing for a man to be too emotional, because when you have a man who is too emotional, again, he's very volatile and very unstable, and you never want to raise a boy to become an emotional man, because he's not going to be a man who, one, is going to have the discipline to maintain responsibility. He's not going to have the resolve to persevere, and he will just be continuing to act emotionally, not understanding how bad a look that is. Because when you're a man and you're too emotional and you're acting out emotionally, what you're doing is sending a message to other men and women that you're weak. And when you send that message to other men and women that you're weak, what you're doing is telling them that they don't need to respect or regard you. What you're doing is telling them that you are not a man who has good strength of character. And when you send that message, what you're doing is telling all of those female and male predators that you're a guy that they can go out here and use as a pawn on their chessboard, to get themselves ahead at your expense, because you don't have control over yourself, so others think that they have a right to take control over you. So that's why a man has to be very measured in the way he responds to people, because a man can't go out here reacting to people. One of the worst things a man can do is go out here and react to situations, because when you react to situations, what you're doing is sending a message to other men and women that you are weak. And that's what the emotional man is. He's a guy who basically sends out that message that he's a weak man. And he's a weak man that, again, can easily be malleable and manipulated like silly putty and made a complete fool of by people. And that's why a man who is smart doesn't go out here expressing too much emotion, because he understands that, again, emotions can be a tool that people can use. If people can find a way to push your buttons, if they can find a way to upset and agitate you to get a reaction out of you, they can get power over you. And if they can get power over you, you're not the one who's in control. No, they are the one who's in control. And that's why a smart man always keeps his emotions in check and always stays serious. A responsible and smart man stays very serious, because he understands he needs to be in control of himself and needs to be in control to take the lead as related to himself, because if he can't lead himself, he can't lead others. And if he's out here and he's not in control of his feelings, then he can be dictated to and made to follow somebody else's lead, and that's not what any man who wants a part of God's order wants to be. He doesn't want to be led by anyone but God. He doesn't want to be misled by his feelings. And again, this is why a man has to maintain control over his emotions, because emotions are very dangerous, and again, very dangerous for a man to have as related to things. Now, men, again, we do have emotions, but the way we express them is with measure and control. And again, a man will express how he feels not by expressing emotion too much. He will express it through his actions. I mean, a man will go out here and he'll express his feelings through his actions. He will not go out here and express emotions out here unless it's a real serious situation, like possibly the passing of a family member or something like that. But the way he does things is through actions. And again, he'll express his passion through his actions. He'll express his care through his actions. That's how a man expresses his feelings. And again, he doesn't go out here and express too much emotion, because again, he knows that people, when they see a man who's emotional, they see him as somebody they want to get power over. And the worst thing a man can do in any situation is get too emotional, get too personal, because if he gets emotional and personal, what that's going to do is show that that man is completely out of control. And when a man is completely out of control like that, he's basically done as related to the game of life, because that guy is going to get played. And that's why you don't see no man acting all emotional. No, only guys who act emotional like this are the guys who are like these beta males who have been basically raised by women to submit to women and have been raised to be emotional like a woman. But when it comes to a man, again, he's in control of his emotions. He tries to be in control of his emotions most of the time, and he tries to be in control because, again, he doesn't want to be in a position where he's basically in a position where he can be manipulated and taken advantage of. So the reason why when you see a serious man, that's a positive sign. When you see a man who is very serious and very formal, that means that that man has a good, strong sense of control over his emotions. And that's something a woman or a man wants, because in both cases they know that they can trust that man. They can trust that man in positions of leadership, and can trust him to be able to take responsibility, because if he can take responsibility over himself, they don't have to worry about him. But when you see a dude who is too emotional and just flies off the handle or just gets too excited, that's not a guy you really want to be around, because that's a guy who basically, if he can be made to lose it so quickly, he will go out here and put your business in the street. He's the guy who will go out here and participate in gossip. Again, a man who is too emotional is someone you just can't trust. And one of the worst things a man can be is too emotional. And people wonder why I am not emotional, because I've learned for many years what can happen to you if you get too emotional. I mean, that's part of what I wrote in the John Haynes 87 book. I want people to understand, again, what can happen to somebody when they lose complete control. And that's why a man has to measure his responses to people and measure his actions, because there's consequences to those actions, and you want to be able to mitigate those losses. So you want to be a guy who is in control over his emotions. Now, many women want to see a guy that, some of them say they want to see a guy who's emotional, but really what those women want to do is manipulate a man. And they want to manipulate a man because they want to find the buttons they can push so they can get an outcome as related to things. But a man doesn't go out here and do that at all. No, he's a man who maintains a sense of mystery. And part of maintaining that sense of mystery is being measured as related to your emotions, so that people cannot go out here and get a predictable reaction out of you so they can get power in the situation. No, this is a situation where what you want to do is maintain control of yourself, so that you can go out here and be able to have a life where you can receive the abundant life that God wants to give you. And part of receiving that is, again, having control over your emotions so that you can be the one who's in control over you. Now, if you want to pick up some of my men's issues books, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, A Steam Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.